There, history nerds. Welcome to Crash Course, the show where we make learning history as exciting as surviving a potato famine while juggling chainsaws. I'm your host, John Purple, hence the purple suit, and today we are diving into the consequences of the cataclysmic event that forever changed the course of human history, World War I. This was an all-out, total brawl between some of the world's most powerful nations. It was like an epic game of geopolitical chess, except the pieces were real people, and they were getting pummeled by cannons, poison gas, and the overwhelming weight of industrialized warfare. Now, this war wasn't just fought on the battlefield. It seeped into every aspect of life, affecting millions of people across continents. World War I wasn't just a standalone event. It set the stage for even greater turmoil to come. It sowed the seeds of future conflict, reshaping the geopolitical landscape and leaving deep scars on the collective consciousness of nations. It shattered empires, redrew boundaries, and left a trail of broken lives in its wake. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So picture this. It's June 28th, 1919, and the Treaty of Versailles is about to be signed. But hold on tight, because this treaty wasn't just about ending World War I. Oh no, it had a hidden agenda, and that was to break up Germany like a soggy pretzel. Now, there were many territories that Germany had to give up, but the most important ones were Poznan and Pomerania, given to Poland, and France's prized possession, Alsace-Lorraine. This treaty also wanted to let people decide how they'd be divided. I guess these countries were democratic for a reason. So they played a game of let the people decide, with a plebiscite, a fancy name for a vote. The Allies felt generous, so they left some other areas, such as southern East Prussia and Schleswig-Holstein, to a plebiscite as well. And while they were at it, they recognized the independence of Czechoslovakia and gave parts of Upper Silesia to Poland, throwing territory around like a diplomatic game of hot potato. Now, let's take a trip to the world of colonial territories. Germany had to say auf Wiedersehen to its colonial dreams. Togoland and Cameroon became French playgrounds, and Britain also got a piece of the pie. Not to mention that Germany had to swear off the arms trade. No more manufacturing chemical weapons, tanks, or armored cars. The Navy was limited to a handful of ships, and submarines were a big no-no. And here comes the money talk. Germany had to accept the blame for starting the war, and that came with a hefty price tag. Initially, it was 132 billion gold marks at the Treaty of Versailles. However, that total was reassessed and set at 112 billion marks in 1928. It seems like there was more bargaining going on here than a busy flea market. Last, but certainly not least, the Treaty of Versailles set the stage for the League of Nations. Like if a bunch of diplomats said, hey, let's all be friends and prevent future wars. Spoiler alert, they failed to prevent a major one. Now, let's rapid fire through the rest of the important treaties. First up, Saint-Germain-en-Laye, signed on September 10th, 1919. It was a treaty that divided the newly formed Republic of German Austria. Remember Austria-Hungary? Say goodbye, my friends, because it officially dissolved. Poof! And from its ashes rose Czechoslovakia, claiming lands like the Sudetenland, Bohemia, and Moravia. What an astounding development. Hold on tight, because the territorial changes keep coming. Galicia and Lodomeria? Say hello to the re-established Polish Republic. Bukovina waved goodbye to Austria and joined Romania. Italy wanted a slice of the action too, so they snatched the southern half of Tyrol, and also laid claim to the Austrian littoral. The new Yugoslav kingdoms of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes wanted in on the action. But I can't pronounce any of these words, so here's my friend John.
Thanks, John. So, they took Dalmatia, Carniola, Lauristeria, Carinthian Mias, Jezerko, and even Bosnia and Herzegovina. Now it was time Hungary faced the Treaty of Trianon after the end of communist rule. Brace yourself for some big changes. Transylvania, Banat, Crisalna, and Maramureas say hello to Romania. Now that's all for me. Back to John Purple.
Thanks, John. Slovakia then became part of Czechoslovakia, and Carpathian Ruthenia joined the mix. A total territorial makeover. For our last treaty, let's fast forward to the Treaty of Sevres, but with a twist. It was never ratified, thanks to the Treaty of Lausanne. Nevertheless, there were some interesting provisions to discuss. The Allies appointed a panel to control the Ottoman Empire's finances, demilitarize straits, and free zones like Constantinople and Haifa. France got a piece of the pie with Syria and parts of Anatolia. Greece joined the party too, taking Smyrna and establishing a protectorate.
Now, let's backtrack about 2 years. It's November 1918, and the Soviets are feeling pretty confident after defeating the Whites. But wait, they decide to turn westward and reclaim lost lands from the Central Powers. Cue the dramatic entrance! With only 2,000 Estonian soldiers armed with light weapons, it seemed like a David versus Goliath situation. The Soviets storm in with 7,000 battle-hardened troops and a ton of firepower. Uh-oh! But fear not, Estonia quickly introduces conscription and rallies their forces with foreign assistance. Thanks to Britain, who sends naval support in a shipment of rifles and machine guns, and Finland, who adds more rifles, field guns, and even a volunteer corps. The Estonian army grows to 13,000 men, and they decide to give the Soviets a taste of their own medicine. In January 1920, they launch a counteroffensive, liberating cities left and right. Tapa, Rakvere, Narva, they all fall back into Estonian hands. The Soviets retreat across the Narva River, thanks to a sneaky naval landing by the Finno-Estonian forces. Talk about teamwork. But hold on tight, because the Soviets aren't giving up that easily. A massive Soviet force of 80,000 soldiers, that's a lot of soldiers, launches a wide push, recapturing towns along the Estonian-Latvian border. Estonia doesn't back down. They go on the counterattack, pushing the Soviets back to the Upsjok River. The fighting becomes more intense, especially in Norvoru, where the battle rages on for months. Amidst the chaos, elections come and go. White Russian forces consolidate, and Estonia joins forces with Latvia. They launch a major offensive, and victory is within reach. Narva falls, the Luga and Saba rivers are reached, and even Pskov is captured. But wait, the Germans, looking to puppet Estonia, pose a new challenge. A plot twist for sure. The Estonians face a tough German force, but the Entente steps in to negotiate a ceasefire. However, the Germans break the ceasefire, and the battle continues until Estonia finally breaks through. Sassus falls, Victory Day is celebrated, and Riga is within reach. The Landeswehr agrees to a ceasefire and joins the Latvian army. The Soviets try to broker a peace settlement, but negotiations will take time. While negotiations are ongoing, the Northwestern Army launches Operation White Sword to capture Petrograd. Estonia provides support, and with arms from Britain and France, they launch a fierce offensive. But the Soviets, led by Lev Trotsky, unleash a massive force of 6,000 conscripts. The Estonians, exhausted, fall back to the Narva River and face intense fighting at the Luga River along the way. The battle reaches its peak in December, but finally a peace treaty is agreed upon by the end of the year. The ceasefire went into effect in January 1920, and the war officially ended on February 2nd. Now, let's quickly turn our attention to the tumultuous events in Latvia and Lithuania, where they both faced intense struggles for independence. The Latvians and Germans fought back against Soviet Russia, reclaiming cities and securing a truce. In Lithuania, the Lithuanians, with German support, resisted the Soviets and confronted Poland in a conflict over Vilnius. These events shaped the course of history in the Baltics and set the stage for future challenges. There were a few conflicts in Eastern Europe that followed the end of the Great War, notably the Soviet-Polish War and the Russian Civil War. The Polish-Soviet War took place from 1918 to 1921. The Bolsheviks aimed to recapture lost territories, but Poland wanted to restore its pre-1772 borders. Led by Joseph Pilsudski, Poland took control of parts of Belarus, Lithuania, and Galicia, soon after launching the Kiev offensive, capturing the city, but facing a Soviet counterattack. After a decisive victory at the Battle of Warsaw, Poland pushed back. Poland and the Russians took tug-of-war too literally. The end of the war came with the Peace of Riga in 1921, dividing disputed territories between Poland and the Soviets. Predating the Soviets' war by about a year is the clash between the Whites, who are the anti-communists, and the Reds, who are the communists, in the vast Russian Empire. At first, the Bolsheviks, who are the Reds, controlled Russia, but following World War I, things became complicated. The Czechoslovak Legion revolted in Siberia, and the Allies joined the fight there, as well as in North Russia. Now, enter the provisional all-Russian government. We can just call them Tsarist Russia. The Bolsheviks would push back to European Russia and bits of Central Asia, with Alexander Kolchak taking control of Tsarist Russia, installing a dictatorship. After launching several failed offensives and the defeat of the Northwestern Army, the Bolsheviks struck back hard. The White Army, forced east, eventually surrendered in 1923, although there was sporadic fighting in Central Asia until 1934.
Not too far away from this fighting was Hungary, facing their own challenges. Hungary had surrendered before the official end of World War I, unilaterally disarming their army 3 days later. This allowed French, Siberian, Czechoslovak, and Romanian forces to swoop in and snatch up Hungarian territory. When World War I finally wrapped up, conflicts erupted over former Hungarian lands, and Hungary attempted to defend its pre-war borders. Spoiler alert, all of their attempts failed quite miserably. During this time, a short-lived communist state called the Hungarian Soviet Republic came into existence for only about 4.5 months in 1919. Sadly, it was marked by military failures and subservience to foreign occupiers, not exactly a success story. Two main conflicts defined Hungary during this period: Hungarian-Czechoslovak War and the Hungarian-Romanian War, which were both fought from autumn 1918 to summer 1919. In November of 1918, Czechoslovak troops entered the newly disarmed Hungary, but after the Soviets took power in Hungary, the director Bea Kun declared war. Hungarian forces rallied and pushed their way back through their old northern border. This led to the establishment of the Slovak Soviet Republic, shining light on the fact that this war wasn't, in fact, about regaining lost territory, but rather spreading communism. This obviously destroyed troop morale, eventually leading to the disintegration of the Hungarian army. The Czechoslovak army regrouped, launched a counterattack, and won a critical battle at Zolban. The war ended when Hungary sued for peace and signed a ceasefire. Having the same idea as Czechoslovakia, Romania entered Hungary, swiftly occupying territory. A back and forth of skirmishes erupted, and Hungary looked to be ahead. That was until the morale of troops plummeted, leading to an inevitable retreat and occupation of Budapest by Romania on August 3rd, ending the war.
Oh boy, after World War I, Germany was like, what just happened? They were caught up in a whirlwind of economic and political chaos. It was a wild ride. Following the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, the German Empire was as flimsy as a wet noodle. Seriously, it was hanging on by a thread. And then, out of nowhere, the communists decided to shake things up. Well, not really out of nowhere. A lot of people were starving. They launched a full-on uprising, and for a moment, it looked like they might actually topple the German government. Talk about a plot twist. For the first stage, sailors went rogue, revolting in ports like Wilhelmshaven, followed by the Kiev Mutiny. Civil unrest spread like wildfire, and even the Kaiser himself said, "I'm out of here," and abdicated. It was a chaotic time. The second stage consisted of the Social Democratic Party of Germany, the revolutionary leaders, putting forth a different plan. They were like, okay, let's do this peacefully. They went for a national assembly and formed the groundwork for a parliamentary government. Instead of plunging into a full-blown civil war, they decided to bring the upper class on board. They basically said, hey, join us in the new system, or else. And guess what? They joined. Not like they have much choice anyway. The Army Free Corps teamed up and crushed the Spartacist uprising in Berlin. They also squashed the other leftist uprisings. And by the end of 1919, Germany was more pacified than a baby bunny. But not everything was peaches and cream. Due to the reparations, Germany had to pay a lot from the Treaty of Versailles, and that put it in a financial pickle. They had to pay back about 2 gazillion gold marks. And what did they do? They printed money like there was no tomorrow. Suddenly the German mark was worth less than monopoly money. Quite literally. The inflation got so bad at one point that $1 US was worth over 5 billion German marks. You basically had to bring a wheelbarrow of cash to buy a loaf of bread. It was like the mark was on a trampoline, bouncing higher and higher and higher and higher. Fear not, Hjalmar Schacht, the currency commissioner, came to the rescue with a shiny new currency, the Rentenmark. It was worth something now, $4.2 to be precise. Goodbye wheelbarrows. Hold on to your beer mugs, because here comes Adolf Hitler. Inspired by Mussolini's March on Rome, Hitler and his pals from the
Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei.
Try saying that 3 times fast. Attempted a coup d'etat in Munich. They called it the Beer Hall Putsch, because why not? 2,000 Nazis marched into the city, ready to take over. But as an unlikely twist of fate, the local police were like, nah, not on our watch, and shut them down. It was a major fail for the Nazis. Economic turmoil, communist uprising, hyperinflation, and failed beer hall coups. Germany after World War I was a roller coaster ride you wouldn't want to miss until about the 40s. After the Ottomans threw in the towel, they were like, wait a minute, we want our territories back. So they embarked on a 4-year slugfest, determined to reclaim what was once theirs. And you know what? They succeeded! If you remember from before, the Treaty of Sèvres got a makeover, and the Treaty of Lausanne made its grand entrance. Inevitably, another war broke out. The Armenians holding their border were no match for the Turkish forces. I mean, they were spread thinner than butter on toast. The Armenians were like, okay, we're out, and abandoned the central city of Kars. Turkey swooped in, capturing the aforementioned city, along with Alexandropol and the village of Aghin. The Armenians had no choice but to surrender, and the Soviets took over. But wait, here's the dark part. Turkey went on to commit mass atrocities against Armenians in the Kars region. Not cool, Turkey. Not cool. Now it's 1921, and Turkey and the Soviet Union were sitting down at a table, signing the Treaty of Moscow. They were all like, let's be friends, and split Caucasia between them. Turkey officially got the Kars Oblast, which used to be a part of Armenia and Georgia. Talk about territorial negotiations, am I right? Turkey also fought the Franco-Turkish War, where France tried to capture some land in Syria and southern Anatolia, and the Turks were not too thrilled about that. They struck back, forcing France to surrender, not that big of a surprise, and signed the Armistice of Mudanya. That's a win for Turkey. Greece also wanted to expand their empire, specifically trying to restore the glory of ancient Greece and the Byzantine Empire, because they needed to relive their past before everything deteriorated. So they pushed inland, taking promised territories left and right. The Turks, unhappy about this, set up a surprise at the Sakarya River. The Greek front collapsed, and the Turks counterattacked like there was no tomorrow. They even recaptured the city of Smyrna and set it on fire. That sent Greece running for the hill like Kate Bush, evacuating all of their promised territories and accepting the aforementioned Treaty of Lausanne. It was a roller coaster of a war. Turkey went through a lot during those years, fighting wars left and right, signing treaties, and flexing their military muscles. It was a tumultuous time, but in the end, they managed to secure their place on the world stage. Now that's what I call perseverance. Thank you for joining us on the Crash Course journey. I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of the consequences of World War I and how it shaped the world we live in today. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and let's strive for a future of peace. Crash Course signing off!